of actually being a major player in the service globalization industry. We now move on to slide 10. And I'd like to bring everyone's attention over to why we benchmark the London time against all the locations in the region. We presented this due to, and this was very deliberate on our end, as we want to highlight the fact that Western Europe emerged as the largest grouping of or cluster of service buyers in the world, representing a possible 63% of the market. This fact does not escape the attention of service providers, which makes a strong case for both Africa and the Middle East for them to establish a presence in the region to cater to this requirement. What Latin America is to the US, this particular region is now going to be the nearshore option for Western European requirements. Now, slide 11, we now proceed to the centers of excellence for service globalization within the region. And as identified in the previous webinars, the center of excellence is a location that would provide a significant advantage over others in terms of a process, or in the case of several locations globally, multiple processes. The story that we could see here is quite interesting. There are actually three locations, and that is Egypt, Cairo in Egypt, Johannesburg in South Africa, and Accra in Ghana, that has been part of this particular ranking since 2007. And as you can see, except for a small hiccup for Ghana from 2007 going into 2008, they are actually all moving in the right direction. Cairo in Egypt maintained their ranking for 2008 going into 2009. The rest of the other locations in the region is actually on the Tholons radar. And as Ed mentioned earlier, we're going to have another webinar 2 weeks from now that's going to reveal the top 100 outsourcing cities. And hopefully we could see some of these cities included in that particular list. Just to reiterate certain points, there are 2 regions, 11 countries, and 13 cities in this particular region, with Egypt and South Africa having 2 locations. Positive movements could be observed from the locations that made it to the list from 2007. Let me zero in on just 4 areas. Cairo has been consistently ranked at the top 20s of the study, with best-in-class promotion strategy followed by the government of Egypt. Now, there are several hot from the press news coming out of Cairo right now, with them bagging very huge deals in the past 2-3 weeks. And we're actually expecting more positive news to come out of this particular location. Johannesburg is considered among the emerging outsourcing cities since 2007. Does not have geographical proximity, but does have the advantage of time and cultural proximity to the UK and other clients in Western Europe. Accra, again, moving slowly and steadily, and hopefully we could see better numbers coming out of Accra. And then Casablanca in Morocco is expected to emerge as a strong player in the coming years with, of course, not only for its excellent French capabilities, but other aspects as well. You know, I'm greatly surprised even at locations at Nairobi, Kenya, and what's happening there. So just to wrap up my side of the presentation before I hand it over to Pumela, let me just go through some bullet points regarding the key accelerators. Again, I think it's quite obvious with the slides presented earlier. Multilingual capabilities. This is going to be a very huge strength of both Middle East and Africa. Second point is the local governments are well aware of what they need to do, and they're actually partnering well with the service industry by forming various support organizations and initiatives. There's a slide that was just dedicated to time zone affinity to Europe, And this is much better compared to other Asian destinations. Now, other than Israel, most countries have low per capita GDP, therefore telling us that cost arbitrage is pretty much present. Due to proficiency in Arabic, the Middle East region is also a service buyer market. Now, what I don't see in this slide is it's the same story for Africa as well, because especially the Eastern African bloc has its own requirement already that could be serviced, which makes it very appealing for the large service providers to actually locate in that particular area. Now, there are accelerators. Apparently, there are also key inhibitors. Number one is currency risk. Highly volatile currencies and risk of inflation. This makes investors a little bit jittery, and something has to be done to address this. There's also IP risk, which is now pretty much part of everyone's checklist in terms of looking at new locations and looking at new service delivery centers. Some of the countries in this region particularly lead the world piracy and cybercrime lists. That's not going to be healthy for the region. And then number three is a diluted value proposition. And this is not exclusive to Africa and the Middle East. Even Asia, even Latin America and certain parts in Europe also suffer from this particular gap. Most countries in the region offer similar value proposition. A unique positioning is critical for individual countries, and we could see that happening little by little, especially in terms of what Egypt is doing now. I believe Kenya is coming up with its own angle as well as Ghana. Even Nigeria is getting into this particular mix, and then Jordan is actively taking a stab at this and making a unique value proposition for their country as well. I guess, you know, mixing everything up is not really healthy, because oftentimes we could see how respective locations pitch themselves in how they paint a picture of who they are would include a lot of other things that the services globalization industry is not really interested in. I know that Pumela has a very interesting presentation that's going to follow mine, and I guess this basically concludes my side of the webinar. Ed.
Yeah, on to Pumela's presentation. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll now move on to Pumela's presentation.
Thank you very much for affording me this opportunity to share what is happening on the African front as far as this sector is concerned. And my presentation will just also expand on what Jonathan has said, but I agree on all of the points that he has made about the region. So as promised, we will be answering the question of what makes the African region attractive compared to other locations, and whether this region actually has the capability and capacity to provide mature IT and BPO services. I thought I should just kick off this presentation with some quick facts on Africa, which are quite interesting. Currently, we have 1 billion people in Africa, and it is estimated that by 2040, about 1.1 billion of the population will be of working age. And I thought it's important that I flag that, because it's key in terms of the BPO sector, as we know that this sector relies a lot on the youth in terms of the labor force. And it's also interesting to note that the Africa's collective GDP is set to rise. Currently, it's equal the size of Brazil and Russia, but it's expected to actually rise to about 2.6 trillion in 2020 compared to this 1.6 trillion that it is today. And 50% of Africans will be living in cities by 2030. So those are quite interesting facts about Africa. And the next slide is really about a quick recap. As we know, the ICT-enabled services spectrum, but just to highlight that any of the services that you see in the slide can be provided from Africa. So most African companies have the capacity and the capability to provide IT outsourcing, business process outsourcing, knowledge process outsourcing. Africa, in terms of its offerings, can be divided into two main regional hubs. We have the Sub-Saharan Africa, which consists of the Southern Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and Central Africa. And we also have North Africa. In terms of Sub-Saharan Africa, the strengths lie really in English, French, Portuguese languages, and also in banking, financial services, and insurance. And some of the sub-Saharan African countries are moving into the higher end of the value chain. In North Africa has a number of language capabilities, from Arabic to German, Spanish, Italian, and the northern part of Africa is actually very good in terms of software development, computer programming, research and development, and other back office work. If we look at a comparative snapshot of African outsourcing destinations, we will see that the key players in this sector at the moment are Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, South Africa, Kenya, Mauritius, as highlighted by Jonathan. And that part of the key strengths that these countries offer is a variety in terms of languages. And not only that, the countries are quite advanced in terms of the processes that are currently offshore to the countries, anything from IT to R&D to contact center and back office work. And a number of companies have set up operations in all of these countries, and they still hope for more investors to be able to move into the continent. Now, about 7 of the African countries have been included in the list of A2 Kearney in terms of Global Services Location Index, and these are Egypt, Ghana, Tunisia, Mauritius, Senegal, Morocco, and South Africa. And this again gives hope that there are countries with enough capabilities to service the offshore market. A quick view of what each of the countries offer. South Africa is very good in terms of BFSI, telecoms, retail, ITO, knowledge process or outsourcing, legal process outsourcing. Ghana is positioning itself in terms of customer care because of its good English capabilities, data entry. Malawi also has good English language capabilities. Nigeria, financial services, as Nigeria has a number of banks. Mauritius, financial services and French. Kenya, financial services and IT services. Egypt has highlighted software development and back office. Morocco and Tunisia on IT services. But again, this does not mean that they do not offer some of what is highlighted in the BPO spectrum. I thought I should also share, the support that governments within Africa are giving to this sector by making an example with South Africa. South Africa identified the BPO sector as a priority sector for the country and set out about 5 strategic pillars which were aimed at creating an enabling environment for the sector. This was talent development, strategic marketing, quality standards, incentives, and so on. And key to mention here is that South Africa was a pioneer in terms of developing quality standards for the sector, and a number of other countries are developing an interest in these standards so that they can adopt them on their own. Also, it is interesting to note that in most of the African countries, there is a keen interest on developing the talent. Egypt, for example, has got EDU Egypt. Other countries like Tunisia, Morocco are partnering with other countries like China to be able to make sure that there's enough availability of labor pool that is trained and ready for the sector. If we use this South African and make sure that they produce a work-ready, BPO worker or agent. And then general observations as on Sub-Saharan Africa is highlighted. We're dividing this region into Sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa. Mauritius is positioning itself as a regional hub of disaster recovery and business continuity planning. And South Africa sees itself as a launchpad for the rest of Africa. And a report that South Africa issued about 2 days ago says that